Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the parallel session at the International Conference on Advancement in Data Science, E-Learning and Information System, ICADEIS 2026. My name is Mega Fitriani Eskom MCOM, and I'm honored to serve as the moderator for this session. Today, we have a series of remarkable presentations that will explore about intelligent computing and apply artificial intelligence. Okay, before we begin, allow me to outline the format for this session. Each presenter will have 10 minutes to deliver their presentation, and then at the 8th minute, a reminder will appear that there are 2 minutes left. At the 10 minute, I will state time is up, followed by a 5-minute question and answer segment for online session, a maximum of 15 minutes per presenter for Q&A session that can be extended to 20 minutes if needed. I kindly ask all attendants to hold their question until the Q&A session after each presentation. Okay, and then if a presenter is not ready to present within 1 minute of their scheduled time, we will process to the next presenter. And then the presenter who was not ready will be rescheduled to present at the end of the session after all other presenters have finished. Okay, during other presenter session, please mute your microphone unless permitted to speak. Okay, I would like to remind our presenter to change your display name to your paper ID followed by your full name. Or there is the example room. We are in room C4, and then your paper ID and your full name. Okay, and then please make sure to use official virtual background provided for these sessions. This help maintain a consistent and professional appearance throughout the event. Okay, now without further ado, let us welcome to our first presenter. There are Mr. Raditya Pratama from Institute Teknologi 10 November. Are you here, Mr. Raditya?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Aditya will present a paper titled Enhancing Stock Management Accessibility Through Voice Command Plugin Architecture and Field Usability Evaluation. Okay, you have 10 minutes, Mr. Aditya. Place and time are welcome.
Okay, thank you. Good day, everyone. Welcome to this presentation. My name is Aditya Pratama, and today I am presenting our research titled Enhancing Stock Management Accessibility Through Voice Command Plugin, Architecture and Field Usability Evaluation. The study was conducted alongside my co-author, Professor Mahendrawati ER, at the Department of Information Systems, Institut Teknologi 10 November, Surabaya, Indonesia. Okay, next. Okay, our presentation is structured into 4 primary sections. We will begin with the introduction to establish the field context and situational constraints of micro-retailers. Then we will look into our methodology, detailing our design science research framework and plugin architecture. Next, we will discuss our quantitative and qualitative results, and finally close with our conclusions and future research directions. Okay, next. Okay, let us begin with the introduction. Traditional retail store or warung operators face continuous situational impairments due to high-intensity multitasking. They must simultaneously manage store items, handle cash payments, and deliver real-time customer service in unstable environments. Because conventional inventory GUIs require extensive, precise manual typing, abandonment rates remain high. Voice user interface present an excellent hands-free solution, but mainstream cloud-dependent frameworks introduce unpredictable network latency and require constant internet connectivity. To bridge this gap, our core thesis statement is by executing speech recognition and natural language processing entirely on device, we eliminate cloud dependencies and internet latency for retail accessibility. Okay, next. To address these issues, our research details 3 key objectives: developing an offline edge computing UI plugin, integrating a native Android speech recognizer that bypass cloud systems, and formulating actionable design principles mapped to user meta requirements. Structurally, we follow Pfeffer's design science research methodology, moving from problem identification and technical prototyping to live field evaluation with 5 active store operators. Next. Now, let us examine the core system architecture. First, our artifact is built as a cross-platform Flutter Android overlay plugin integrated using a gray box approach. This lets operators add voice navigation directly over an application without refactoring the host system's backend. We map 5 specific meta requirements to design principles. For instance, DP3, the dynamic screen context detection, utilizes a Flutter meta channel to track active screen IDs, allowing the system to accurately route context-aware voice command. And the design principle for non-invasive gesture injection utilizes Android Accessibility Service to automatically inject touch inputs directly into the standard GUI elements based on the interpreted voice commands. Okay, next. Next, we will look into the operational pipeline of our NLP engine. Okay, so our on-device NLP pipeline handles data using an event-driven publisher-subscriber model, or commonly known as PubSub. First, acoustic transcription runs locally using the native Android speech recognizer, triggered with the extra prefer offline flag. The resulting raw text is evaluated by a deterministic keyword search regex engine to isolate the intent and capture entities. Crucially, a slot manager monitors incoming commands. If required details are ambiguous or missing, it triggers a request slot state. This activates a closed-loop error recovery flow, utilizing local text-to-speech to prompt the user for clarification without ever needing an internet connection. Okay, next. We conducted a within-subject field usability evaluation across 5 operational micro-retail stores. Every operator performed 4 core inventory tests using both standard touch-based GUI and our VUI plugin overlay. These tests represented typical workflows. T1 was a complex multi-slot product addition. T2 was a standard resolve entry. 3T was an inventory search, and T4 was a quick sell transaction. We measured time on tests, error counts, test success rates, and SES rankings. Okay, next. In terms of efficiency, both modalities achieve a 100% test success rate across all 40 trial instances. For single intent test, the voice plugin compressed complex UI workflows down to single sentences, producing massive speed advantages. Specifically, T3 search saw an 80.99% speed gain. T4 quick sell saw an 83.89% gain, and T2 restock achieved a 67.04% increase. However, we hit a clear data complexity limitation during T1, where product registration was slower via voice at 154.3 seconds compared to 65.6 seconds on the GUI. This demonstrates that spelling out alphanumeric product names or verbally reciting barcodes is highly tedious, marking a limitation for pure voice inputs. Okay, next. Error metrics revealed that VUI recorded a total of 20 interaction errors across the trials, compared to only 6 on the GUI, with 80% concentrated in the complex T1 and T2 scenarios due to regional accents and transcription variations. However, this highlights the error resilience paradox. Despite generating 3.3 times more raw errors than the touch interface, the VUI still achieved a flawless 100% test success rate. Because our closed-loop local text-to-speech instantly reprompted operators upon transcription failures, users successfully self-corrected their phrasing in real time without requiring any manual research intervention. Okay, next. Perceived usability metrics further validated our architecture. Both interaction methods achieve excellent ratings that significantly outperform the global SUS baseline of 68. The GUI achieved a mean score of 86, while our VUI plugin achieved a highly comparable 85. Qualitative feedback was entirely positive, with all operators confirming that the voice interface successfully eliminated small screen typing errors. Importantly, 3 out of 5 operators explicitly preferred using standard touch inputs for complex data registration screens, supporting our proposal for a hybrid design approach. Okay, next. To conclude, let us summarize our core architectural insights. Okay, so in summary, our field study demonstrates that an on-device edge computing NLP plugin is highly viable for retail environments, successfully eliminating network latency and cloud dependency, while voice control yields massive speed gains up to 83.89% for simple single intent tasks. It reached a clear complexity wall during multi-field form data entry. Consequently, we proposed a clear task modality mapping using voice as the primary driver for quick navigation and simple updates while preserving the standard keyboard for high precision entry. Moving forward, we intend to expand our sample size for broader inferential tests and integrate dialect-aware fuzzy matching layers to further reduce transcription errors. Okay, next. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aditya, for that insightful presentation. Okay, we will now open the floor for question. If you have a question, guys, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom and then kindly state your name and affiliation before asking your question. Okay, to all participants, have a question for Mr. Aditya. Okay, I have one question, Mr. Aditya. About your research, yeah. What was the main motivation behind conducting this study?
Okay, so my main motivation is that I frequently saw retailers or like warung operators. They usually uh, do their business without ever accounting the profit and the loss. So they don't know if they are making a profit or they are making a loss on a sale. So like my idea is to make a stock management app and help these retailers so that they know what they are doing. And based on the usual app, the GUI, the graphical user interface app,
Yeah.
these owners are lazy and they don't want to continue using the graphical user interface of the app. So my idea is to make a voice plugin so it's easier for them to to note the sales, so they are more informed of what they are doing. It's like that.
Okay, so interesting, Mr. Aditya. So, what are the next step for this research?
For this research, I already made the newer application voice for the voice control. So our our team has already has made the submission to Google Play Store to upload the application to Play Store. It's like that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aditya. Any other question, guys? Okay, so thank you for the answer and for your presentation in this session, Mr. Aditya. And due to time constraint, we must now move on. If you have additional question or collaboration with Mr. Aditya, guys, you can approach or reach out Mr. Aditya in other session. Okay, thank you, Mr. Aditya. Now we move to the next presenter. Please welcome Mr. Raden Dava Virasyan. Are you there?
Hello.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Radenda Vavirenshan will present a paper titled A Control Comparative Study of RAG and KGRIG for Explainable Asset Maintenance Recommendation, right?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Radenda Vavirenshan, you have 10 minutes. Place and time are welcome.
Thanks for the time and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Salendava Prasanti Kusuma from the Department of Information System, Telkom University, Bandung, Indonesia. Today, I will present our research titled Control Comparative Study of RAG and KGRAG for Explainable Asset Maintenance Recommendation. This work was conducted together with Mr. Sinung Songkato, Mr. Eki Nafrizalam, and Mr. Edi Triotno Nuryatno. Next. This presentation is structured into four main parts. First, the background and motivation. Second, the methodology. Third, the results. And finally, the conclusion. Next, let us begin with the research and motivation. Industrial maintenance decision must be both accurate and justifiable. Engineers do not only need a recommendation, they need evidence explaining why that recommendation should be trusted before committing to inspection, repairs, or equipment shutdowns. Recent advances in large language models have created real opportunities for generating natural language maintenance recommendation. However, LLMs carry a serious risks: hallucination, generating responses that sound convincing but are not grounded in supporting evidence. In industrial maintenance, this is not just a technical problem. Unsupported recommendation can lead to unsafe action, unnecessary downtime, and significant financial losses. The Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, address this by grounding the model's output in retrieved documents, but conventional RAG relies primarily on semantic similarity, and that has a critical limitation. Maintenance knowledge is inherently relational. A symptom might indicate a failed mode may have a root cause, and that root cause determines the appropriate maintenance action. When the chain of reasoning is distributed across multiple documents, conventional RAG may retrieve relevant text but still fail to connect the dots. Knowledge Graph Enhanced RAG or KGRAG address this limitation by adding structured relational context into the retrieval and generation process. This leads us to the central research question of our study. Under what condition does knowledge graph context actually improve maintenance recommendation quality? Our paper makes three contributions. First, a comparative evaluation framework for RAG versus KGRAG. Second, a domain-specific knowledge graph schema connecting assets, components, symptoms, failure modes, causes, and maintenance action. And third, a four-dimensional evaluation rubric covering relevance, explainability, traceability, and unsupported claims. Before moving to the methodology, let me briefly state the research gap. While Perl has applied RAG and knowledge graph to maintenance domains separately, no study has directly compared them using a multidimensional evaluation covering relevance, explainability, traceability, and unsupported claims. Nor examined under what evidence condition graph context actually helps. That is precisely the gap of this study address. Next, I will explain how the experiment was designed. The slide shows the architectural comparison between conventional RAG and KGRAG. The experiment was designed to isolate a single variable, the presence of knowledge graph context. Everything else remained identical. The same 15 document corpus, the same 20 maintenance scenarios, the same retrieval settings, and the same prompt structure, and the rest is the same language model, Qwen 2.5 billion. On the left, conventional RAG performs query embedding, vector retrieval, prompt construction, and generates a recommendation. On the right, KGRAG introduced three additional steps before prompt construction: entity matching, knowledge graph retrieval, and graph relation extraction. These are fused with the retrieved document chunks to form a richer structured context. The knowledge graph contains 184 nodes and 182 edges, built from 80 entity types and 7 relation types, connecting assets to components, symptoms to failure modes to causes, and causes to maintenance action. As a result, KGRAG can provide not just retrieved text, but explicit reasoning chains that support traceable recommendation. Next. For evaluation, we use a blend simulated evaluator protocol, as shown in Figure 2. 5 evaluator agents were defined to represent distinct professional perspectives as technical administration, senior mechanical troubleshooting, maintenance planning, reliability engineering, and maintenance supervision. All agents were implemented using GPT 5.5 at temperature zero, ensuring deterministic reproducible scoring. Outputs from both systems were anonymized as method A and method B, and each agent independently scored them across four dimensions on 1 to 5 Likert scale, explicitly prohibited from scoring based on output style or formatting. We acknowledge that relying on simulated rather than human evaluators is a limitation, which we will return in the conclusion. Next. Now let us look at the results. The key observation is that KGRG achieved higher scores across all four dimensions. For relevance, the score increased from 3.89 to 4.27. For for explainability, from 3.87 to 4.02. For testability, from 3.4 to 3.83. And for unsupported claims, from 3.79 to 4.02. Overall, performance improved from 3.74 to 4.04. However, not all improvements were equally meaningful. The strongest gain was in traceability, an increase of 0.43 points, with a highly significant p-value of 0.003. This confirms that knowledge graph context is particularly effective at correcting symptoms, failure modes, causes, and maintenance action through explicit evidence chains. In contrast, explainability improved only slightly and did not reach statistical significance at p equal to 0.066. This is itself an important finding. Structured relational contexts do not automatically produce clear natural language reasoning. The language model still needs to bridge graph relation into coherent explanation, and this depends on prompt design and model capacity. A larger LLM may yield a significant explainability gain. Next. To confirm whether the observed difference exceed change, we applied a one-tailed Wilcoxon sign length test and a paired t-test across 20 scenarios. Both confirm statistical significance with p-value of 0.034 and 0.03 respectively. The effect size coherence D of 0.44 is medium, indicating the benefit is not only statistically detectable but practically meaningful. KG-REGI won in 12 of 20 scenarios, REGI won in 6, and 2 were tied. But the most important insight is not in the average. It is in pattern of when each method wins. For example, in scenario 1, the relevant evidence was split across multiple documents. Conventional RAG retrieved a generic description of abnormal noise as a fault indicator, but could not identify the specific failure mode. KGRAG supplemented this with structured graph path, excessive vibration to bearing defect or misalignment, to alignment check and bearing replacement. This explicit chain raised the traceability score from 2.9 to 3.8 and the overall score from 3.55 to 4.1. In contrast, the scenario 7 involved a document that directly links sanction signer blockage to cavitation noise. A complete diagnostic chain already in a single chunk. Here, the additional KG contexts were redundant and conventional RAG actually outperformed KG-RAG 4.9 versus 3.95. This contrast illustrate the central finding of this paper. KG-RAG is most beneficial when maintenance knowledge is rational and distributed across documents. When evidence is self-contained, conventional RAG remains highly competitive. Next. Let me conclude with the key takeaways. Three main conclusions can be drawn from this study. First, KG-RAG outperformed conventional RAG overall. The overall score improved from 3.74 to 4.04, with the largest gain in traceability, confirming that knowledge graph context stringent evidence linkage across symptoms, fail modes, causes, and maintenance action. Second, the advantage of KG-RAG is conditional on evidence structure. When maintenance knowledge is distributed across multiple documents, KG-RAG helps reconstruct explicit reasoning chains, but with evidence is already self-contained, conventional RAG can achieve comparable or even better performance. The practical question is therefore not whether to replace RAG with KG-RAG, but when additional complexibility is justified. Third, structured knowledge does not automatically produce better explanation. Explainability remains dependent on prompt design and language model capability, a direction for future work. For the limitation, the study is limited by small corpus of 15 documents and fixed 20 scenario set, the use of simulated rather than human apparatus, and lightweight language model. Results should be treated as preliminary evidence from a controlled setting. For the future work, next step include
Okay,
validation.
time is up.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Dava, for the nice presentation. Okay, we go to the next session. It's Q&A of this session. Okay, please, if you want to deliver question, guys, you can raise hand and then you can state your name and affiliation. Hello, any question? Okay, Mr. Dava, very interesting research. You collaborated with Mr. Eddie, ya? Yeah, Mr. Eddie.
yes,
He affiliate in Asia Europe for AI network, ya?
yes,
Okay. It's a research about your final project or no, Mr. Raden
yes.
Dava?
It's about my final project.
Okay. What the challenge, biggest challenge in your research process, Mr. Dava?
The challenge of this research is three main challenges. First,
Hmm.
knowledge graph construction, and second is evaluation design, and the third is controlling confounds. The core challenge was making the comparison clean enough to be meaningful, isolating KG impact while keeping everything else constant.
Okay. So, what's the next step of this research, Mr. Dava? You can develop for the thesis in magister, maybe?
Maybe for the next step of the research is the first human validation requiring mechanical and reliability engineers to re-evaluate the same recommendation our simulated agents code. The second is expanding the corpus with real-world maintenance document to test finding under realistic condition. The third is improving graph-to-text prompt engineering to close the explainability gap. And the last is building an automated KG construction pipeline to replace the current manual process and reduce correction costs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dava, for your answer. Okay, any other question, guys? Enough? Okay, we must now move to the other presenter. Sorry, and if you have additional question to Mr. Dava, you can approach in other session. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Dava. Okay,
Thank
let
you.
us now proceed to our next presenter, to Mr. Karisa Herman. Are you here?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Okay, please welcome Mr. Karisa Herman from Yunus University, and the title of the paper is Optimizing Siamese Network for One-Shot Signature Verification, Constructive versus Triplet Loss. Yeah, right. Okay, you have 10 minutes, Miss Karisa. Place and time are welcome.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I want you to think about the last time you signed something important. You probably signed it just once, leaving a single example of your signature. The question we set out to answer is whether a machine can confirm that signature is really yours when it has only that one sample to compare against. I'm Karisa Gloria Herman, and today I'll walk you through how we verify a signature from a single reference and share the result about our training method that genuinely surprised us. This is a joint work with Alexander Agung Santoso Gunawan and Jeffrey Junior Teja Sulaksana at Bina Nusantara University. Next slide, please. Now, let me start with why this problem is harder than it appears. Signatures are used everywhere, precisely because they're so convenient. But that convenience is also their weakness. If a signature is easy to produce, it's also easy to forge. The most dangerous cases are skilled forgeries, where someone has actually practiced reproducing your signature. To handle this at scale, we rely on automatic signature verifier systems, or ASV. The problem is that the current ASV systems force a trade-off we shouldn't have to accept. The first issue is that they store reference signatures as raw images. So, if that database is ever breached, the attackers walks away with everyone's actual signatures. We end up handing forgers the very thing we were trying to protect. The second issue is that these systems are data hungry, needing many signatures per person. Yet, signatures are sensitive and people are understandably reluctant to provide dozens of samples. In other words, the data you need is exactly the data nobody wants to give. Our work breaks that trade-off with a model that needs only one reference signature and never stores it as an image. That leads to our three contributions. First, a one-shot verification that reaches 96.04% accuracy from a single reference. Second, a direct comparison of two loss functions that produce a surprising result. And third, security by design, since every reference picture is stored as a 64-dimensional embedding rather than a picture. Next slide, please. To place this in context, early signature verification systems use CNNs with traditional classifiers and reach up to about 97.7% accuracy, but they were data hungry and offered no security. Siamese networks came next and made few-shot and one-shot learning practical, performing consistently well. This table compares those methods, with our approach on the bottom row. The methods above us either trained CNNs from scratch or relied on multiple shots, whereas we use a pre-trained ResNet 18 with a contrastive loss in a one-shot setting, reaching 96% accuracy on CDR, an improvement of 0.32 to 10.44%. Just as importantly, we fill a column none of the others do, because we're the only approach storing embeddings inside of raw images. Next slide, please. So how do we actually teach a model to recognize someone from a single signature? Our process runs through 6 stages: dataset selection, splitting, exploratory analysis, pre-processing, modeling, and evaluation. For data, we use the CIDR dataset, which has 55 writers, each with 24 genuine and 24 forged signatures. One detail is worth highlighting. We split the data by writer, using the first 45 writers for training and holding out the last 10 until test time. Since a deployed system will always encounter new people, this writer independent split keeps our evaluation honest rather than letting the model recognize writer it has already seen. For pre-processing, we path each image to a square, resize it to 224 times 224 for ResNet 18, convert it to grayscale across 3 channels, and normalize it with some light augmentation added to the training set. The core of the model is a ResNet 18 pre-trained on ImageNet, where we replace the classifier with layers that compress 512 features down to 64 and then L to normalize them. We compress this aggressively for 3 reasons. 64 dimensions are enough to capture a signature's overall shape without chasing noise. The model stays light and fast to train, and a factor of 64 numbers can realistically be reversed back into someone's signature, which is where the security comes from. We train for 20 epochs with ADAM using low learning rate on the pre-trained backbone and a higher one on the new head, a margin of 1, and online pair mining for the contrastive model. The practical payoff is that at inference, each reference is stored only as a 64-dimensional embedding, never as a raw image. Next slide. With the model built, the real question is whether it worked and which loss function came out ahead. The contrastive loss performed strongly, reaching 96.04% accuracy at a decision threshold of 0.18. Breaking that down, it had a false acceptance rate of just 4.58% and a false rejection rate of 3.33%. In concrete terms, out of 240 forgeries, only 11 slipped through, and out of 240 genuine signatures, only 8 were wrongly rejected. This figure explains why it works so well. The green distribution is the distance between a writer's own genuine signatures, and the red is the distance between the genuine and the forged one. And you can see that the red and they barely overlap. Genuine pairs sit at an average distance of about 0.087, while forgeries sit far out at around 1.02, which means the model groups a person's real signatures tightly together and pushes the fixed one well away. That clear separation is exactly what makes the verification reliable. Next slide. Here's where the results surprised us. Triplet loss is usually treated as the go-to choice for metric learning, so we fully expected it to win. Yet it reached only 65% accuracy. Its false acceptance rate and rejection rate were both 35%, which means it had no bias towards either class, but still got roughly a third of all signatures wrong, only about 16.67% better than guessing at random. The reason comes down to two things. Because we didn't use a mining strategy, triplet loss kept selecting easy triplets, comparisons that were already far apart and therefore produce almost no loss, no useful gradient, and very little learning. On top of that, our data scarce setting simply didn't contain many hard, informative triplets to learn from in the first place. You can see the consequence directly. Unlike the contrastive model, the genuine and forgery distributions overlap heavily here, leaving no clean boundary for the model to draw. The broader takeaway runs against conventional wisdom. When data is scarce and you only get one shot, the simpler contrastive loss at 96% clearly outperforms the more sophisticated triplet loss at 65%, mainly because it converges faster from less data. Next slide, please. So let us bring this together. There are three things to take away. First, we built a secure one-shot verifier using ResNet 18 with contrastive loss that confirms a signature from a single reference at 96% accuracy, while storing that reference as an embedding rather than as an image. Second, and this is the headline, contrastive loss outperforms triplet loss when data is scarce, which is a useful reminder that the popular default isn't always the right choice. This visualization shows that success directly, with genuine and forged signatures separating into two clean clusters. Looking ahead, we'd like to give triplet loss a fair rematch with more data and hard negative mining. Test the system against cross-writer forgeries and add automatic writer identification so it can recognize who is signing without being told. Next slide. So coming back to that single signature you imagined at the start. It turns out one example really is enough, as long as the model is trained the right way. The code is openly available on GitHub. Thank you for your attention, and I'd be glad to take your questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Carissa. Very interesting research about signature verification. Yeah. Okay. We invite to you all participants to deliver your question if you have a question for this research. No question? Okay, I have a question, Ms. Carissa. Okay, how might the sample size or data source have influenced the results?
So because the data source is quite small, in which we only have 55 writers and 48 signatures for each, so the training is quite limited. Therefore, when we compare the two losses, contrastive loss and triplet loss, we know that contrastive loss is significantly more simple than triplet loss. And so triplet loss needs a lot more data than contrastive loss to able to converge better and produce better results. And then in addition to that, the triplet loss also didn't have hard negative mining. We didn't use a mining strategy for triplet loss, which caused it to choose like easy triplets. So they chose triplets that were already far apart. So like maybe one random writer and the reference signature. So because of that, there's practically no loss and no gradient to optimize. And so the model using triplet loss barely learned anything, which is why in the end, the contrastive loss went out a lot more against triplet loss, and why the data also affects it highly.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Ms. Carissa. If you were to conduct this study again, yeah, what would you do differently?
I guess the main thing I would do differently is to employ mining strategy for both the losses so we can compare them more equally. And then I might also add more reference training data from other dataset resources to combine it. And so we give the model more chances to learn and possibly produce better results.
Okay, enough, Ms. Carissa. Thank you for the answer and for your presentation in this session. We go move to the last presenter. Yeah. Okay, there are Miss Lisa. Yeah. Okay, let us now process to our next presenter. Please welcome Ms. Liza Aisyah Putri Solistio from Institute Teknologi 10 November. Okay, who will present a paper titled Forensic Artifact Parser for Android Fitness Application. You have 10 minutes. Place and time are welcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of my partners, Dr. Hudan and Dr. Bastukoro, I'm Liza Sulistyo from Institute Teknologi 10 November, and I would like to present about our research with the title Forensic Artifact Parser for Android Fitness Applications. Next, please. So this presentation will be divided into 4 sections, from introduction, proposed methodology, results and discussion, and conclusions. Okay, next. Okay, next. Okay. Nowadays, fitness applications such as Strava, Garmin Connect, and Zepp have become part of the lifestyle of millennials and Generation Z. These applications record sensitive physiological and mobility data such as heart rate, speed, and GPS coordinates. From a legal perspective, this data is a critical evidence for reconstructing movement patterns and validating timelines. It has also been used in real-world homicide investigations to challenge suspect alibis. While Autopsy is a primary open-source forensic tool, it currently lacks native support for the FIT and TCX formats, which used by these applications. Investigators often only see this data as the raw hexadecimal code, which is highly inefficient for analysis. So our contributions is the development of custom FIT and TCX parser modules integrated directly into the Autopsy Engage module combining Python and Jython. Okay, next. Okay, next. So our proposed methodology is divided into 8 main stages. First, we start with the forensic image acquisitions, followed by forensic evidence identifications, and then we do the raw hexadecimal analysis. After that, we develop the parser, testing it, and integrate it into the Autopsy. After successfully extracting the artifacts, we also evaluate the results by its success rate, precision, recall, F-measure, and then we also conduct a robustness testing by cross-dataset. And then we also compare with the prior tools, which is in external comparison. Okay, next. So before conducting the acquisitions, first we perform data collection by installing the health and fitness applications on Samsung A20s that runs Android 14. Then we create the user accounts, configuring the wearables, devices, and recording activities. Then we acquired the forensic image using Android Debug Bridge to answer the unaltered version. After that, we loaded the forensic image into Autopsy. Then these files are classified as unrecognized binary data under the application/octet stream category. And Autopsy will only display the raw hexadecimal content. Okay, next. So for the parser development stage, we developed 2 Python-based parsers, one for FIT and one for TCX files. We can also access these codes on the GitHub. So, before both parsers were designed to extract fitness activity evidence and convert it into structured forensic artifacts that can be analyzed in Autopsy. For FIT parser, the main challenge was that FIT files are binary files, so they cannot be directly read by the autopsy. Therefore, the parser first decodes the fit file using the fit decode library. After that, it will extract important activity informations such as port type, start time, duration, distance, and GPS records. After that, for the GPS coordinates in fit files are stored in its semicircle format. So the parcel will also convert them into decimal degrees. This allows the route to be reconstructed by identifying the starting point, ending point, and the full sequence of start points. Then the parcel also calculates additional information such as average pace, best pace, and maximum speed. And then the final output are stored in JSON format and later mapped into the autopsy artifact type TSK fit activity. As for the TCX parser, the process is slightly different because TCX files are XML based, so we can read them. We can also read them. And then the parser begins by cleaning and validating the XML file to prevent the parsing errors. After that, it will extract activity information such as port type, device information, start time, distance, durations, and calories. And additional values on extensions node are also extracted. Then the output is also converted into JSON and mapped into the autopsy artifact type TSK TCX activity. And then before integrations, both parsers were tested independently using the Visual Studio Code command line. This testing is focused on checking whether the important attributes were correctly parsed and whether the output were inconsistent in the JSON format. And then we also tested the error handling cases, such as malformed files and missing attributes, to make sure the parser would not crash. And then after this standalone testing, the validated Python scripts were integrated into Autopsy using Jython ingest module framework. The parser was registered through the init.py loader, and the extracted JSON output was mapped into custom Autopsy Blackboard artifacts. With this integration, fit and TSEC files can be processed automatically when a forensic image is loaded into the autopsy. And the extracted activity evidence can be viewed directly through the autopsy interface. Okay, next. To evaluate our framework, we use 4 standard metrics such as success rate, precision, recall, and F-measure. F-macro efforts also added due to the dataset imbalance. Okay, next. And then we also perform cross-dataset robustness testing and an external comparison with the ELEA framework. Okay, next. Next. Okay, we tested our parser across 5 distinct datasets, D1 to D5. This dataset span through various devices, including Samsung, Poco, Realme, and Xiaomi, and also runs multiple Android versions from Android 11 until Android 14 that covers activity from 2020 until 2026. And we also use various types of variables such as Amazfit, Garmin, and Huawei. As for the results, both Fit and TCX parser achieve 100% extraction success rate across 2,800 files in our 5 datasets. And there were no crashes or failures regardless of the variable brand or Android versions. Okay, next. So when we compare our output to the ground truth, we found a near perfect alignment. Minor discrepancies in pace and or durations were attributed due to rounding and how platforms like Strava distinguish between the moving time and elapsed time. And then our Fit parser achieved an overall F-measure of 90.83%, while TCX parser reached 88.96%. 88.96%. The slight difference in TCX scores for certain datasets was due to nonlinear sports such as badminton, when some attributes are actually absent in the source files. Next. To handle the imbalanced dataset, we also use macro average F-measure, with fit parser achieve 86.90% and TCX parser achieve 82.21%. And compared to Alayap, our parser offers some advantages. It is extension based rather than path dependent, and it supports TCX formats. And also, it handles missing values properly without terminating the extraction process. Next. Next. As for the conclusions, this study proposed and implemented custom parser modules for fit and TCX activity file formats integrated into Autopsy through Jython. And the developed parsers enable automated extraction of structured fitness activity artifacts, including activity type, timestamps, distance, durations, and calories from Android forensic image. As for the result, both parsers achieve 100% success rates, and our parser outperforms the Alayap's because it has path independent discovery and broader activity level instruction. As for the limitation and FutureWorks should focus on improving compatibility with a wider range of mobile devices and wearable brands, as well as enhancing sport type specific attribute. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lisa, for the nice presentation and the nice research. Yeah. Okay, about forensic artifact, and then use the Android application. Yeah, about you use Strava and then other ya tadi ya. Okay, Miss Lisa, what is the most significant finding from your research?
I think the most significant finding for my research is the method of parsing itself, because Autopsy is an open source applications. And it is used widely by investigators, but sometimes it lacks in module or plugins. So that's why I tried to develop this custom parser, and then I've read in America, or I don't know, like other countries, it also used as an evidence for murder cases by reconstructing the history of activities of that person.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, we will now open to full question from other all participant. If you have question, please you can raise hand and then state your name and affiliation. Any question? Okay, one question again, Miss Lisa, yeah. Okay, what are the main limitation of this study, Miss Lisa?
I think the main limitations is also due to the limitation of the autopsy, because when I try to extract the exact locations, like the track points, starting points, if I extract them one by one, or all of them, it crashes on the application. So right now, my parser only parse the main activity data. As for the track points or GPS coordinates, I store it in a JSON format, so it is not shown all on the autopsy. I think that's the limitation.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lisa, for the answer and the presentation of this session. It's the last of presentation in this parallel session. Okay, on behalf of ICHADEIS 2026, I would like to thank you to all our presenters for their exceptional contribution and insight. Okay, before closing the session, we would like to invite all presenters and participant to join to a group photo ya. Okay. Okay. Okay, we took a photo. 1, 2, 3. Keep smile. Okay, once again. 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you guys. I would also like to extend my gratitude to all participants to their engagement. We hope this session has been both information and inspiring. And then please be reminded that the next session will begin at 15:30. We invite you to stay and continue exploring the valuable idea and discussion presented throughout the conference. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.